Horn Island sits about 10 miles off the Mississippi Gulf Coast. There are no houses on it, no roads, no stores, no way in and no way out except by boat. On a clear summer day, the water runs shallow and warm along its beaches, and on the 4th of July, 2026, that stretch of coast was crowded. Families, coolers, music, boats anchored just off the sand. Nolan Xavier Wells was one of the people who made the crossing that day. 18 years old, he arrived in the afternoon with a group of friends, launching from a private dock near Ocean Springs and running the open water out to the island to spend the holiday. By late afternoon, he was gone. Not gone the way a teenager wanders off and turns up an hour later. Gone in a way that would pull in the county sheriff, the Coast Guard, state marine officers, national park rangers, and a fleet of volunteer searchers. Gone in a way that, 2 days later, would end with his body recovered from the water at the northwest tip of the island, the same stretch of shore where he had last been seen alive. Officials would say they suspected he drowned and that they found no signs he had been attacked. And still, almost no one who loved him accepted that as the full story. That is where this begins. Not with an answer, but with a question. A family refused to stop asking, and with the hours between 3 o'clock and the water that no one has ever been able to fill. Before the island, though, there was the athlete. Nolan grew up in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, a coastal town where high school football sits close to the center of local life. He graduated from Ocean Springs High School in 2025, played more than one sport, and left an impression on nearly everyone who coached him. By the summer of 2026, he was a wide receiver at Southwest Mississippi Community College, a freshman with a full season still in front of him. The people who knew him did not reach for his stat line when they talked about him. They reached for his character. His head coach at Ocean Springs, Jake Bramlett, described him as the kind of teammate, student, and son every coach hopes for. A young man who led by example, whose character spoke louder than anything he did on the field. At the college, President Dr. J. Stephen Bishop called him well-respected and widely liked. When his teammates returned to campus, the school brought in counselors and local ministers because the loss did not land like the loss of a player. It landed like the loss of someone the community had already decided to love. At home, he was Christine and Elmore Wansley's son. In the days after he disappeared, his mother wrote that her heart was broken for a boy who was always ready to lift other people up. She called him a special soul and asked for something that turned out to be almost impossible in the weeks ahead. Time and space to grieve. That was the young man who boarded a boat on the 4th of July. And what happened after he reached the island became a question that would soon draw national attention. If you want this story told the right way, built on what's confirmed, not on rumor, subscribe now. As this case develops, you'll get the facts here as they're verified and only when they're verified. The boat left the Ocean Springs area that morning and pointed south toward Horn Island. For a while, the day was exactly what it was meant to be. A holiday on the water, the kind these friends had spent together before. Around 3 o'clock, Nolan was seen near the north end of the island, talking with a young woman. That sighting is the last one anyone has been able to confirm. 3 p.m. on a crowded beach, in daylight surrounded by people. What happened after is where the record thins. By the accounts that later reached investigators, the group's plans changed around 4:30. Their boat had started taking on water, and the bilge pump, the small system that clears water from the hull, had begun to fail. Staying wasn't an option, so the group decided to head back to the mainland. Nolan did not go with them. He chose to stay on the island and catch a ride home later with another group of friends. To the people on that boat, it wouldn't have seemed alarming. He was among friends he'd known for years, on an island full of holiday boaters with an easy way back. But one detail mattered more than anyone understood at the time. Nolan's phone stayed on the boat. Whatever came next, he had no way to call anyone, and no one had a way to reach him. The afternoon turned to evening and evening to dark, and Nolan did not come home. Around 11 that night, a friend contacted the Coast Guard about him. The Coast Guard would later say the call at that stage did not require its assistance. Near midnight, his mother phoned the Jackson County Sheriff's Office to report that her son had not returned. A teenager who had left for a holiday that morning was now officially missing. By the next day, that quiet fear had become a full-scale search. Just after noon, the sheriff's office asked the Coast Guard for help and made the case public, releasing a description of 18-year-old Nolan Xavier Wells and asking anyone who had been near the island to come forward. The same shoreline that had been full of music and boats was about to fill with something else. What followed was a coordinated operation across land, water, and air. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office led it. The Coast Guard issued an urgent marine broadcast and put a helicopter over the water. The Mississippi Department of Marine Resources joined, along with the rangers of the Gulf Islands National Seashore, who patrol these barrier islands and know their currents and shorelines better than almost anyone. Alongside the agencies came the United Cajun Navy, a volunteer search organization that mobilizes fast when someone goes missing on the water. Boats ran the shoreline. Aircraft flew grids overhead. For close to 2 days, everyone chased the same question. One of the people in the air was Brian Trasher, the National Vice President of the United Cajun Navy. On Monday morning, he was flying reconnaissance over the island when the activity below changed. Boats were gathering on the beach. A command post was going up on the sand. Then messages came from his people on the ground. They had recovered someone they believed to be Nolan. It was a park ranger who made the discovery around 8:45 that Monday morning near the northwestern tip of the island. Trasher's read of it was gentle. He believed a wave had carried the body back to shore. What he said afterward stayed with a lot of people who followed the case, that he had wanted to bring Nolan back to his mother alive and well. That was not how it ended. The search was over. But for Nolan's family, the hardest part of this story was still ahead. This is where a lot of channels move on. This one won't. Subscribe, and the moment the official findings are released, you'll get them here, in plain language, with no guessing in between. Identification came first. Jackson County Coroner Bruce Lind Jr. traveled out to Horn Island himself for the first examination. Formal identification came through dental records, confirmed on July 7th by the state medical examiner, and an autopsy was performed that same day at the state lab. But identification is not explanation. On the central question, how Nolan died, the official answer was and remains incomplete. Investigators said they suspected drowning and that they found no physical trauma pointing to an assault. Sheriff John Ledbetter said he did not suspect foul play on drugs or alcohol. He said there was no current indication of either, though that would depend on toxicology, and toxicology takes time. The coroner was direct about it. No autopsy results yet, no final report from the medical examiner, and a full cause of death dependent on screening that could take up to 2 weeks. He also did something you rarely see mid-case. He pushed back on the rumors. One claim, spreading online, said Nolan had been found bound or wrapped. Lynn stated flatly there was no truth to it. That he had to say it at all tells you what was happening around this case. As the facts moved slowly, speculation moved fast. Here is the tension at the center of everything. Officials were describing a likely accident with no evidence of an attack, but the family was not prepared to accept that as the final word. And they said why out loud. The Wells family retained Ben Crump, the civil rights attorney, known nationally for a decade of closely watched cases. Crump announced an independent second autopsy, with Nolan's body flown to Washington, D.C. for it, and results expected within days. His stated reason was trust, or the lack of it. Crump said the family had concerns about whether Mississippi would fully investigate the death of a young black man in a situation where, in his words, young white students might be looked at as having some responsibility. Nolan was black. The friend group he traveled with was, by multiple accounts, white. Asked directly whether something sinister had happened, Crump didn't overstate it. He said they didn't know, but intended to find out. The case soon drew in the Reverend Al Sharpton and his National Action Network, adding a national platform to the family's call for transparency. Then there was the video. A clip began circulating that appeared to show a heated argument near the shoreline before Nolan disappeared. It spread widely and raised alarm. But the irresponsible facts around it are narrow. Sheriff Ledbetter confirmed his office was aware of the footage, but did not confirm it was authentic, did not confirm it involved Nolan, and did not connect it to his death. On July 8th, the sheriff's office asked the public for original, unedited photos and videos from the northwest tip of the island, including any showing an altercation, and for anyone who saw or heard a disturbance to come forward. That is a request for evidence. It is not a conclusion. And the friends were not silent. Ashley Cole, a Jackson County Chancery Court judge and the mother of one of the young men who traveled with Nolan, spoke publicly. She said her son Warren had been interviewed by the sheriff's department and cooperated fully, and she laid out the timeline as she understood it. The group left when the boat took on water, and Nolan made the decision to stay behind and return later with others. So this is where the case sits. On one side, an official picture of a tragic accident with no evidence of an attack and a cooperating group of friends offering a consistent account. On the other, a grieving family that does not trust that picture, a second autopsy, a national legal team, and an open public appeal for footage. Two versions of the same afternoon. And between them, that same unaccounted stretch of time no one has filled. It's worth saying plainly, because it's part of this story too, the rush to fill those blanks has already done harm. Rumors have outrun facts. People connected to Nolan and to the friends who were with him have faced accusations and threats over a version of events no one has proven, which is exactly why the coroner had to knock down false claims in public, and exactly why the family's own request for a full and careful investigation is the right one, whatever it reveals. Nolan Wells was 18 years old, a son, a teammate, a friend. His family isn't asking for a story, they're asking for the truth, and they've said they won't stop until they have it. When an official account and a family's questions don't line up, the gap between them is usually where the truth is hiding. And that gap is what this channel exists to follow, carefully and honestly. So subscribe and stay with this one. The moment the autopsy and toxicology findings are public, you'll get them here, verified in full and free of speculation. No theories dressed up as facts, just what actually happened to Nolan Wells the moment it's known.